I was really drawn into your film. I feel like I haven't seen, honestly, I haven't really seen anything like it. A lot of the visual cues have stuck with me since I've seen it, and I was just so fascinated by this. I don't want to say subject matter, but I mean, it's just so. I think this doc does a thing that I really like documentaries for is that it's short, but it also makes me want to find out more about the subject and find out more about like who these people are and where this thing takes place. So I guess first, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And I guess the first question I had was, how did you even hear about this?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It's lovely to talk to you, Joey. And so the way I actually got to care about it, and I think it's something that the circumstances of how the film came to be, maybe lended to that feeling of, it's short, but it leaves you with that emotional hook to want to ask more questions, and we have the
Mm-hmm.
answers to those questions too. Um, so I came to the project not as a documentarian. I wasn't even a
Mm-hmm.
filmmaker. I was a student doing undergraduate research, basically about indigenous communities and issues related to mining and water access
Mm-hmm.
in Chile and Bolivia and the Atacama Altiplano region.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said to me, a peer of mine who lives in Bolivia and does kind of activism work, said, if you want to understand how mining affects water access, you have to go to Lake Poopó. It was the second biggest lake in Bolivia.
Mm-hmm.
It was 3,000 square kilometers, excuse me. And it's completely dry. And so I got there
Crazy.
kind of ready to do this history paper because I was studying history about a lake that disappeared. That's not at all what the film is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's because I got there and you realize, okay, first of all, this is not a history. This is an extremely present and urgent situation because it's not just a lake that disappeared, but the people of that lake, the Urus, the Qotzuñis. Qotzuñi means people of the lake that had
Mm-hmm.
lived on it for centuries or longer. How do you adapt when the epicenter of not only your economic and your livelihood, but of your spiritual and cultural identity disappears. And so, so those circumstances of kind of coming at it as a student, wanting to learn more and wanting to help, I think, we didn't have so much time to make the documentary. We made it quickly because it was urgent and we wanted to get that message out immediately.
Wow. Well, I did actually want to ask about timing, so I'm glad you brought that up. But I will say before I ask about that, it's just that the fact that is at the beginning of the film where they say the lake, I'm paraphrasing here, but it says like the lake was what, seven times the size of the capital of Bolivia? Like,
Yeah, or La Paz. Yeah, it's like
yeah,
yeah.
that's just it's this is a really good example, I think, of seeing effect like that, but then it's followed up by the visual representation of that. And sort of I kept thinking about the just the words on the screen when I was seeing it, and it was just sort of like I like that the film does that. It doesn't just introduce you to a statistic, but it also just shows it sort of very plainly, which I thought was very effective. um so yeah, you mentioned making it very quickly. Like, what kind of timeline are we talking about here then?
So I went to do like thesis research. I was in school, so it was really just the summer. So
Okay.
I spent only a couple of weeks. It was only about 4 weeks in Bolivia
Really?
in total. Yeah, yeah, just in
Wow.
total. And so it started off kind of getting there, and I met a local advocacy group
Mm-hmm.
that they kind of want to be a buffer between this extremely vulnerable community that has been taken advantage of with respect to this story. Right? So when I met with them, they said, "Hey, you're not the first person to come and want to take our pictures. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
many foreigners have come. They've taken our pictures, they've taken our words, and they've disappeared. We never heard from them, right?
Wow.
And you can see these articles, right, in big publications, like the biggest ones in the world, that say climate change has claimed this lake. Look what happens.
Okay.
And they said, well, that's first of all not the whole story. The mining,
Yeah.
kind of calling it a climate change disaster, it's true, but it kind of we don't want to overlook the role of mining,
Mm-hmm.
which is very serious. And also, we don't want to do that kind of extractive filmmaking And so it's been a collaboration from day one to say, well, we literally signed kind of promises to say, we're not going to disappear. We're going to work with you
Mm,
starting now, right, to make the film, to get the film out there, and hopefully anywhere it goes, right, interviews like this and
yeah.
festivals and things like that, we're going to try and translate that, that notoriety, so to speak, to on the ground change. And we're doing so with these local advocacy groups that I mentioned earlier.
Mm. So I guess as filmmakers, when you folks come in and you have these conversations with people, knowing that they've had that kind of history with people that come in and just I almost said looky loos, but like they just come in and I don't say kind of take whatever they want and just leave without a trace. Like in terms of like talking to people, because the thing, one of the other things that I love about the movie is that it feels very personal. It feels like everyone that talks to you trusts you. I guess I wanted to ask in terms of approaching this, but also like I was going to ask about trust anyway, but to kind of hear you talk about how people kind of leave and don't follow up. I mean, like, can you talk to me a little bit about how you folks talk to people and kind of just gained that trust? Because I think there's a real tactile thing in terms of the relationship between the people in the movie and the camera that I think is really great.
Yeah, I mean, of course, building trust, it's super important from an ethical standpoint, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
impossible to do a project like this without it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, we didn't have months and months of building relationships, unfortunately. But what we did have, I think, which may have set us apart from other people that have arrived, and the community was more skeptical and didn't want to, kind of let them in. It's that we were young people, we were students, and we didn't come saying we want to make a documentary film and put your film and go to
Yeah.
Cannes and go to Sundance. Like we said, I don't even know if Cannes does documentaries actually, but we, we said, we just want to learn about, what you guys are going through. And maybe in doing so, here's Gaston, he's a co-director. He's a brilliant photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing this academic thesis and I, was exploring journalism and writing, and maybe we can get an article published in the US. Maybe we can get, and try and bring resources that way. And so we're really just kind of saying, what is helpful to you guys? What do you want? And how can we do this in a way that is not, exploitative very clearly, because they were the ones who expressed that they had been exploited in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's just opening that dialogue in a very transparent way and saying, we're not here to take something and run. We want to like work with you guys. And, we have the privilege to go back, right, to the US and to Argentina, Gaston, and to use the resources available to us to try and make a change. So how can we kind of work together? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that doing that, albeit in an expedited fashion, like and just really quickly, I think it opened a level of trust. And then there's another component, which is that since this is an indigenous community whose structure of authority is, so there's the maximum authority, and then each of the three communities has their authorities, and each head of household kind of has a say and everything. But they really do kind of put a lot of trust in their authority. So once I met like really close to Florencio, who's also the producer of the movie, because he helped in so many ways, like putting us in touch with people. Once he kind of gave us that seal of approval, that I think that
Mm-hmm.
sentiment kind of dissipated throughout the community. Like, okay, these guys are not taking advantage of us. Like, I had to present to every single authority, like exactly what
Yeah.
we were doing. And so I think that people kind of word of mouth started to trust what we were doing.
Mm. That's a really good example of how when I realized that you and Gaston were, younger filmmakers, it's just that I don't know. I feel like sometimes people kind of have an inherent trust with, you know, this may sound silly, but in my mind it makes sense. Where it's like I don't know. I think people like right out of school students, there's like a real sort of exuberance to really tell a story in a truly authentic way. Where it's like if you came to these people, 50 years into the industry, I feel like a lot of people may have a little bit of pause. I don't know. There's like a non-jadedness that I'm feeling from you, probably because, like I said, you're a younger filmmaker that I feel like probably somebody latched onto. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
I think so, and I think that they mentioned that, like being a
Mm,
student, and kind of being maybe a little bit naive, also, and at that time, but also like I think the film as a short has been like way more successful than we expected. Right?
mm,
We didn't even know what a film festival was when we started this, and but not like but the impact project that's associated with it, because it's
yeah.
much more than just film, like that has been so successful. Like we've done now several stages of helping with family businesses, with helping because right
That's
now the
great.
men of the community work in those mines that have
Hmm.
really stolen the water from the lake, which is really a terribly dark
Wow.
irony. So they have these family businesses, a lot of artisanship, and they do salt granulation and medicines and things like that. So we've been able to support that, do some food security infrastructure and
Mm,
remediation, and planting trees that can kind of soak up and retain the water when it does rain. Okay, so all of this to say that I see the film as a collaboration, right?
yeah.
That collaboration has led to the success on the ground. And so maybe the naivete I came to the project with was kind of reinforced a little bit, because I say, okay, if you do this in an ethical and collaborative way, it actually can have, I mean, the film was successful, the impact was successful, and I do feel like everybody is happy with the product. And I just hope to bring that to the next project as well. I know
Yeah.
Gaston felt the same way. We hope to replicate that model around different parts of the world.
Yeah. Hey, I don't think being naive, as you say, is bad. I don't think it is. I
No,
don't know. Okay. Um, I wanted to ask about how you and Gaston use silence in this movie. Um, I don't know, it kind of felt like, and tell me if this is completely wrong, but I feel like the silence is used in a way to like show respect. Um, with the visuals. I do want to ask about some visuals in a second, but I do just think that the way that silence is used coupled with what we are seeing is really remarkable. When I was watching it again last night, I was sort of like struck dumb by some of the things that we were seeing, because I feel like the silence really helps that. There's an overhead shot, I think, of a car driving, and it's almost completely silent. So I guess I just wanted to ask a little bit about that.
yeah, I mean, thank you for asking about that. It's not something that people point out, but I do think it is an aspect of the movie that maybe subconsciously impacts the audience, because,
Mm,
I mean, just being there, you really feel the silence of the landscape. And
yeah.
then there's wind, but it's like, and the silence kind of permeates the emotional component too. It's like, what would I have heard a few years ago? Would it have been like the waves of
Mm,
the water of this lake? Like, and it's just completely silent. And there was this moment, right, what you're referencing, after we drove in with some of the urus from Puñaca, Tinta Maria, which is one of the communities.
yeah.
They were just kind of like, we were basically trying to find the water, because maybe there's a little bit if you go super far in, but we drove for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours,
Wow.
and we couldn't find any water. And we stopped on the way back. They said, let's stop here. This is my boat. Florencio said, this is my boat. I kind of just want to, a moment with it. Maybe we can talk about it. And they were all just silently kind of walking around, and you can just feel the emotions that they're going through. And it's been years, right, since the
Mm,
water's been there. But they say like that's a part of their entire identity that's been stolen from them. They don't want to let it disappear, right?
yeah.
But I think the silence, exactly, it's to kind of respect the loss. I mean, in a sense, they said we're orphans. Right? This is a funeral, right?
Hmm.
That this massive kind of part of their community has disappeared. And you just want that to sit for a little bit without some of that flute music, which is
Hmm.
beautiful and made by like a local composer. So
Mm.
kind of, you do want to balance those two things.
Yeah, because I was even going to ask about like what did it kind of feel like to be there, but it felt like the film kind of answers that for me, especially after hearing you talking about it. Like, I don't know, it just felt like the silence is used in such a way where it kind of feels like if you drive out to where the water used to be and like say you get out of the car and stuff, it almost feels like you're like, I shouldn't be able to set foot here. Like it's such a surreal, like weird almost feeling that I don't know, I just think that is so um effective, the way that it visually and orally um kind of represents that loss, that funeral that you mentioned.
And it is like a privilege to have gone there. It is a
Mm,
sacred part there. Like there's so Felix Mauricio, he's one of the oldest people in the community. He was doing this ritual with some models of the boats, of the homes, of things that really represented that past
yeah.
and their culture as Qotzuñis, right? And he was doing this ritual, kind of asking what they call Kota Mama. We know Pachamama as Mother Earth. Kota Mama,
Hmm.
Kota is the lake, right? That's Mother Lake. And so to
Mm,
be privy to that very spiritual moment was a serious privilege, right? And so we did want to be respectful of that as well.
yeah. Kind of going along with that, the towards the end of the film when we see the men on the boat, I guess I kind of wanted to ask what was it like to witness that, just because I mean this is a subject matter that I am sure many audience members, they didn't know about this. And there's something I just kind of wanted to ask what it was kind of like to be in there to watch that, just because it feels in a way, this privilege that you speak of, to be there. It almost feels like I should almost not be witnessing that, as it, I don't know, I just felt like in a way that I almost wanted to, like in a very respectful way, like maybe like turn my eyes down, or I don't know, there's something about that I was really struck by, and I guess I wanted to know what it was like to kind of be there, to sort of be there in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I was saying earlier, Florencio kind of said, "Let's stop here. Let's go to this boat. This was
Yeah.
my boat." And he was kind of using it to say, like, I literally spent weeks in this boat, right? He said, like, this part was my
Mm,
kitchen. This part was where I slept. It's a small
mm,
boat, but this was a lacustrine community completely, right? They lived on floating islands before, and then it was boats that they would live on for weeks and then go back to their
yeah.
homes on dry land. But he got in the boat, and then he kind of called over the others, Pablo and Felix and Cipriana, and he said, like, guys, come in, like, and he said, he basically said, this is going to be a cool shot. Like they've
Yeah.
had people come and take pictures. They know what's going on, right? Like they know that they're trying to get an emotional response from people who watch it to try and kind of communicate the emotions that they feel onto the screen. And they said, this is a
Yeah.
good way to do it. Let's get in the boat. And then he said to Felix, I think he said, start rowing. And he starts rowing, right? And that's where the shot truly was organic. I mean, of course, when you are clearly like filming and making a documentary, it makes people act in a way because they know that they're being filmed. But in past that, it was completely organic. We didn't say, "Hey, can you get in the boat? This would make a cool shot." But of course, as it happened, it felt so surreal in a kind of in a film that's otherwise really grounded in reality. I think it gives a very powerful ending,
Yeah.
and yeah, it just really kind of makes people think like I don't know. It's just like the immense loss here, right? Is that
Yeah.
there's these boats and at the beginning you see the boats and no people, right? You see the
Hmm.
boats empty, no water, no people. At the end, you see the boat and the people in it, and that empty lake still, and it kind of, I
Yeah.
think that it kind of wraps up what we're trying to communicate. It's not the loss of the lake, which is an ecological disaster, but also the people who depended on that.
Mm.
So.
Okay. Sorry, I thought of something and then I just lost my train of thought. It wasn't a question. It was just like yeah, I don't know. That was just a really powerful way to end it. I don't know. There's something about just physically seeing them physically on it. Um, I was talking about silence before, but in a weird way, it kind of made me feel like I don't know. I could hear other things. I'm not exactly sure what. Seeing them on the boat, I don't know. Yeah, it's just a really powerful way to end the film. Um, Thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry not to end it on a on a weird note. It was just I've been thinking a lot about this ever since the first time that I saw it, and I'm glad I watched it again last night before I jumped on. This feels like the kind of documentary where not only do you want to learn more about stuff or maybe learn about similar situations, but it kind of makes me feel like I want to like try and do something, not to be cheesy, but I mean like this is sort of a very beautifully lyrical call to action or at least acknowledgement from the audience. So I think it's a really thought provoking film, and yeah, I'm just gushing at you now, but
Well, I'll say,
yeah,
like, in terms of call to action, I mean, first of all, right, like I mentioned, it's really short. It doesn't explain everything. You might be
I
thinking,
like that
okay,
though. Yeah, I mean,
right, right, because we felt that if we explain everything, well, we would have to put some narration, we have to get by
mm-hmm.
experts, but this is a story about a community. We wanted to be completely in their words, right? And so we were working with that, and it really hooks you in emotionally. And then we do have all that information, right? So I actually did have to write a 100-page thesis about the history of this, and you can go read it if you want. I wouldn't recommend it, but so qotzuñifilm.com,
Okay,
qotzuñifilm.com is our website, and it has a lot of the information in like a virtual museum. But it also has kind of ways to help. So we are doing
yes,
these projects, and we did grassroots fundraising to support like family businesses and food security, like I mentioned. But that's not the only call to action, because the only way to help is not just giving money, right,
yeah,
to the project, which of course everybody would appreciate. But I think another main call to action is understanding your own relationship to water resources, right? So I was just in LA at the Red Nation Film Festival, which is the biggest Indigenous and Native American film festival, and we were showing the film, and so many people were standing up and saying, I come from, whether it's Payahunadu in like the Owens Valley, which is where LA gets all of its water. And they have their own dried up lakes, and they have their own indigenous communities, the Paiutes, right? And there's the Salton Sea, there's Great Salt Lake. I mean, if you go to the Aral Sea or Lake Chad, like wherever it is, wherever you are, even if you're in New York, you need to understand where your water comes from and how the use of those resources affects the environment, but the communities who have long depended on it. And
yeah,
that, I mean, if nothing else, is one of the main calls to action. That's the we are all people of the same lake,
right,
to try and just look inwards and at your own surroundings and say, how does this apply to me? And how can my acknowledgement of that kind of help me identify my own, whether it's complicity or my knowledge or being part of the solution? And if that's something that you take away from the movie also, that's perfectly fine. That's a huge impact too.
yeah. I just literally wrote down like where does my water come from? That's something that I would have the privilege not to think about.
Yeah.
So
Where are you based?
I am in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay. Yeah, I would maybe it comes from one of the Great Lakes, right? But I
Maybe,
don't know.
yeah,
You would
so close.
you would have to look into it. It's important to know. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being so generous with me. I'm glad I got to see it multiple times. So just really rooting for you guys, and I guess just have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. It was a
All right.
pleasure to talk to you.
You too. All right.